What are the things that come up when you're talking to these customers? What are the things that come up on their websites? What are the things that come up commonly on their LinkedIn profiles? What are the things that they're interested in? And sometimes that really helps in terms of sparking the idea for a quiz. So,
welcome to the Magnificent Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top marketing experts in the world and keep you up to date on all the changes and best practices to help you grow your business and stay on the cutting edge. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Josh Haynam, and Josh is the co-founder of Interact, a place for creating fun quizzes that also generate leads. Josh regularly writes about lead generation and conversion rate optimization. He also enjoys a good game of pickup basketball. And today we are going to talk about how to utilize quizzes to generate leads. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. It's been a very pleasant morning so far.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Always good to hear and love hearing positive things. So that's awesome. And as I told you before we got going here, the timing of this is very serendipitous for us here at Magnificent. We just hired a content manager, and a part of what she is going to be tasked with is creating engagement and various other things. And quizzes is something we know work really well. So I cannot wait to dig into this. So let's just start off here by just having you explain in your experiences why quizzes work so well, or might work so well, and need to be part of your marketing equation.
Yeah, so I'm going to give an answer that probably is not what you'd expect. And the reason that is not what you'd expect is because it has nothing to do with the fact that quizzes are super hot right now and they're all over BuzzFeed and the New York Times and that kind of stuff. The reason that we have found quizzes work so well is twofold. The first part of it is that quizzes let people talk about themselves, and people love to talk about themselves. There was this Time magazine study that said 40% of the words we say in our lives are about ourselves, and we actually get a small dopamine rush when we talk about ourselves. The same rush that you get if you were taking drugs or something. So we really like that, and a quiz asks you questions, and even though you're just clicking on the answers and choosing images and stuff, it's the same kind of rush that we get when we're talking about ourselves, and quizzes are the only type of marketing that lets somebody express themselves in that manner. So that's the one reason. The second reason is that the quiz lets you learn about yourself. So you get to find out, what kind of marketer am I? What kind of business owner am I? Which dog breed am I? Which is super important. And you can find out all these things that you want to know. And there's an entire industry based around this self-awareness. Self-help is all just about learning more about yourself. So it's really a powerful personal thing. And those two factors have stayed the same. They're just human elements. They're things that we like to do, and the quiz has captured in a new, much more interactive and enjoyable manner. And that's really why quizzes have gotten so popular.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think I remember reading, I believe the author is Robert Cialdini, if I'm not mistaken, with the book Influence. And I remember reading what he said about when you hear your name, you immediately peak up. Like there's something in your brain. It's like, boom, I'm paying attention, right? And I think this leads to what you were, it goes right in line from like the psychological aspect of, the dopamine and all of that. It's real. Now, I've also heard you talk about like a 40% number. Can you explain that further?
In terms of the words that we talk about ourselves?
I guess. I was just something I was reading about in regards to quizzes where you talked about a 40% number, and it might have been about what you just were mentioning. I'm not sure, but it intrigued me.
So we have that one, and then the other one that we have is a 50% number, which is the conversion rate on quizzes. So half the people who start taking quizzes end up opting into your list if you have that option enabled. So that one is also incredibly powerful.
So what does the 40% number pertain to?
The 40% number is the percentage of the words in our lives that we say about ourselves.
Gotcha. So it was what you were talking about. Unbelievable.
Right?
It's insane. I feel
it's
horrible.
Weird to think about. It's really weird to think about.
It is. I hope I'm not in that, but I probably am. Well, very cool. So 40% people love hearing about stuff. So obviously that means that let's tap into that. And then 50% of conversion, and they follow through the end. Okay, those are some compelling numbers. You've convinced me that we all need to start utilizing quizzes.
Perfect.
So all right, let's start at the top and work our way down. Let's help people, really tactically execute this stuff. So let's just start with the first step in creating an effective quiz. Like, where do we start here? And do you have like an outline you possibly work off of, or what sort of info do you need, or possibly should be thinking of about your audience before you even begin, before you get going?
Yeah, exactly. So the first step is coming up with what the heck you're going to make a quiz about, which, for most of us, we haven't done this before, and, most of the people we work with have never done a quiz before. So it can be a bit daunting to think about, how do I make something that's fun but also doesn't, completely ruin the reputation of my brand? Because I'm not trying to make a, what color am I quiz if I'm selling software. That doesn't make any sense. So here's the framework for thinking about how to come up with a quiz idea. The first thing that you do is you have to define your audience. So who do you sell to? And let's say you're selling business consulting services, you sell to small business owners. If you sell jewelry, you sell to jewelry buyers. If you sell clothes, you sell to people that are into fashion. So that's how you define your audience in ideally just a couple of words. Then you want to think about, what are the different personalities of my audience? What are the different types of business owners? What are the different types of marketers? What are the different types of jewelry buyers? And those are important because those are going to become the outcomes or the personalities of your quiz. Mm-hmm. And then the third step in coming up with the idea for your quiz is you take this template for a quiz title, and the template is, which blank are you? And the blank is where you insert the name of your audience. So which type of business owner are you? What type of jewelry buyer are you? What's your fashion style? So you insert that audience into this title template, and all of a sudden, you've got a quiz idea. And the reason that title template works so well is because it ties back to that aspect of learning about yourself. Mm-hmm. If it's which blank are you, you're going to figure out which blank you are. And that's going to draw you into the quiz. So it's going to be very effective in terms of getting people to take the quiz. But since that blank is filled in with the audience you want to reach, you are going to be reaching the right people, and you're not going to just get a bunch of random people taking your quiz.
Mm-hmm. Now, I hear you, and it makes complete sense. But I also am putting myself, as the builder of one of these quizzes, if I'm coming up with something. And, the outcome, determining the outcomes, like, your different personality types that you're going to end with, that's going to be like the answers, I guess. I can imagine, being able to come up with those ideas for the quizzes, your personality type, or you're just the kind of business owner, or this kind of person you are. But how do you get there? Like, do you have any good advice or good resources to help out here? Or does this just come down to you needing to have extreme intimacy and knowledge about these answers and outcomes to be able to put them together? And I can imagine that could be difficult if you're like an agency and working and doing this for other people. So how do you understand what I'm asking, and how I'm envisioning how that could be kind of a roadblock?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the questions that I like to ask people when they're getting stuck on this step is, what are the things that come up when you're talking to these customers? What are the things that come up on their websites? What are the things that come up commonly on their LinkedIn profiles? What are the things that they're interested in? And sometimes that really helps in terms of sparking the idea for a quiz. So let's say you're selling like enterprise software and you really don't know much about who the heck it is that you're selling to. Like, with people that buy enterprise software, but that doesn't make a very good quiz idea. But then you talk to some people that interface with those customers, and you find out that they're all very much into Star Wars. And then you would make something along the lines of, what's your Star Wars tech personality? And you can kind of come at it from that perspective, where if you know just a few things about the audience that you're trying to reach, commonalities that they have, common interests that they have, then you can spin that around and turn it into the idea for your quiz. So you don't have to know exactly everything about this audience and exactly the different personalities that they bring to the table. But if you can find some common interest that they all have, that's perfect.
Okay, I might have something to interject. I gotcha. And I don't know if you go about this, and you probably do, but yeah, I mean, if you have like a email list of your client base, or if you have a decent Facebook following, you can garner these commonalities through the Facebook Insights and running those. Is that kind of where you go to find some commonalities and seeing if if you see a trend of different pages people like, or different behaviors or different interests that they're interested in? Is that how you go about it as well?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So Facebook's a great resource for pulling in those audience insights, and that's a perfect place to go.
And then from there, you find those out, and then you ask those questions, and then you have the creative liberty to who's going to be Chewbacca, and you just assign. Then you just write out what Chewbacca signifies and all that.
Exactly. And the thing that's kind of mind about a quiz is that there is not much of a difference in terms of how effective it is if you get the personality right or you get it wrong. So if you assign somebody the wrong personality, they're still very interested in why you got it wrong. Almost just as interested as if you got it right and they think it's exactly who they are, which is a very kind of a weird psychological thing to think about, and oftentimes a roadblock for people because they're like, I need to make sure everybody gets exactly the right personality assigned to them. But in terms of actually driving marketing and driving sales, it's nearly as effective if you just get it completely wrong. So you don't have to stress too much.
And this is just for funsies. I mean,
exactly.
We're not taking the Myers-Briggs.
No, we're not. We're not assigning anything really to this. It's simply a fun thing, and it does drive business because if you set it up in such a manner where you're reaching the type of people that you want to work with, they're going to be interested in why they got their personality and whatnot. So they're going to click through and learn more from your site. But it doesn't have to be, the most weighty thing in the world.
Gotcha. Now, as we're working through these, you get your idea, you have kind of the outcome. Now, to get there, what types of questions should be on your quiz to tie all this together from, getting the beginning and having the end, but those questions that lead to those answers, what types of questions do you suggest should be included?
Yeah, exactly. So you want to start with the end. So you want to start with what are the different personalities. So the Chewbacca, R2-D2, that kind of stuff, right? So you want to have your personalities figured out. And then when you go to write your questions, we do have lists of questions you can pull from, and I'll give some examples from those in a second. But when you write the answers to those questions, you want to think about an answer that correlates to each of the outcomes. So if you have 4 different personalities in your quiz, you want to have 4 answers, and one of those answers connects to each of the personalities, and that's how your scoring is going to work. So you've got your whole logic built right into the way that you're thinking about the questions. Now, when it comes down to the actual questions that you ask, the key is to ask very direct and personal questions that are not necessarily related to the results. So what I mean is, if you're doing a Star Wars quiz, a very valid question is, where would you like to go on vacation? And then you choose answer choices that connect to the results. So, Chewbacca wants to go on vacation in this place. R2-D2 wants to go on vacation in this place. And that's how you choose the answer choices that you put into that question. But the question itself is not Star Wars related. It's not really on topic. And the reason you do that is because it draws people in and it gets their intrigue going, because all of a sudden they're wondering how the heck this relates. They want to answer the question because, again, people like to talk about themselves. And of course they want to tell you where they'd like to go on vacation. But they're also getting really curious as to how the heck you are going to figure out which Star Wars character they are based on where they want to go on vacation. So that's the key, is to have these questions that are direct and personal, but they're not necessarily connected to the results in an obvious way.
Okay. Now, are there any questions or format of questions that you should absolutely stay away from?
Not necessarily, but there is a best practice for making the questions. And the best practice is to write your questions as text, and then each answer choice should be an image. Oh. And so if you're saying where would you like to go on vacation, your answer choices are a picture of a beach and a picture of a cabin and a picture of New York City. And those are your options, and you can have captions on those images. But the reason we do that is because images get processed faster in our brains, and especially if somebody is taking a quiz on their phone, which roughly half of people do, you will be able to process faster which answer choice you'd like, and you can proceed through the quiz more quickly, and it feels more engaging and more fun. And so text, question, image, answers.
Okay, awesome. What about tone? Is there any advice on tone do you have for these questions?
Yeah, so there's a few things to think about with that. The biggest one is to imagine that you're sitting across from a person, an actual person that you'd like to have take your quiz, and you're asking the questions to that person. And the reason to do it that way is because when you imagine that you're actually asking them to a person, your questions will be much more personal and more real, and that's what actually draws people into a quiz. So,
can you give us an example there?
Yeah, so instead of saying like, let's say for example, like, what's your biggest problem in your business right now? You'd say, what is really on your mind when you wake up in the morning? Which is what you'd ask somebody in person instead of saying, what's the biggest problem in your business right now? Like, that'd be a weird question to ask somebody if you're sitting down having coffee. What you'd actually ask is, hey, like, what's on your mind? Like, what's really keeping you up at night, right? And you'd ask it that way, and that's a more personal way, and that's going to connect with people better when they're answering the questions of your quiz. So that's the biggest thing.
That's very helpful. I think you're getting some people's thinking in the right direction there. Now, how many questions is ideal?
7. So 7 questions is the perfect amount. It takes about 2 minutes to answer 7 questions, which is the ideal time to get somebody really drawn into your quiz, but not so long that they drop off and leave.
Okay, awesome. Now to circle back to like the quiz titles and options, you gave your best practice of the ones that you've seen do best is which blank are you? Now you're obviously, unless you're a gargantuan organization like BuzzFeed or New York Times, you're not going to be able to produce these all the time. These might even be quarterly type of things that you're doing to gather up leads. I don't know how often you see people being able to churn these out. Maybe I'm overstating how long it takes to put all these together, but I assume there might be other ideas that you've seen as well. Or do you think that you should stick with the which type of blank are you is your main piece of advice? Like, no, just stick with this one for a while until you see other things. Or do you have any other options for like titles and overall subject matter of them that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, so we always recommend that people start with one quiz. I think it can be a daunting enough task to do one, but once you do get into it, we have people that do quizzes all the time, weekly quizzes, some even daily, and there is a lot more you can do with it. So a couple other ideas. The second biggest one after the which blank are you is a simple knowledge test. So how much do you know about some subject? How much do you know about digital marketing, for example, is a really good quiz that a lot of people do. And that one is much more straightforward because you're asking questions that do have a correct answer, and then your outcomes are based on how many answers they got right. So that one's fun and a little quicker to put together sometimes.
And I think that makes that'll be easier to put together for people too. Like, let's just test useful knowledge on our subject. Okay.
Exactly. So that's another one. And then time-based quizzes, I guess event-based quizzes rather. So like holiday quizzes and seasonal quizzes, that kind of stuff. Like what's your Christmas marketing personality or whatever. That kind of stuff where it's related to whatever's happening can make really good social media content, especially if you are posting a lot, that kind of thing.
Oh, and on this subject, on this note here, you did mention that, hey, just making it fun alone is going to help push your business objectives, even if it has nothing to do with your business. And you might have touched it on there, like, what do you know about digital marketing or this or that? But do you have any, if you can expand on my question about doing quizzes that not only are just like fun, BuzzFeedy, but, actually result in strong action for your business. And again, it might be just, hey, just get an engaging one and it will. But to kind of explain what I'm talking about here and what I'm trying to get out of you is, quizzes seem to be more fun, but what advice do you have to make the quiz entertaining yet, directly effective for your business goals? Or again, it might be just, hey, just make it fun. I don't know. What do you have to say about that?
No. I think you definitely have to walk the line on that one. You don't want it to just be fun, but you don't want it to just be about business. And either of those areas where it's too fun or it's too much about business will make your quiz not do so well. And the way to connect it up is to, again, go back to that which blank are you title, or if you're doing a knowledge test, it's how much do you really know about, some subject. And then the important part is to start with those ideas for quizzes that work well, that will get people to take the quiz. But then in those blanks where it's which blank are you or some subject, you make sure that that blank is filled in with an audience or a title that really only attracts the people you want. So that goes back to knowing who you do want in the first place, so some audience research, and then filling in that subject with an idea that's really only going to resonate with the folks that you would like to have as customers. And that's how you connect it up between the fun part and making sure it's actually related to your business.
Understood. Now, what about like segmenting your audiences? I mean, do you see quizzes as a good source for segmenting, your leads or your audience? And if so, can you dig into this for us?
Yeah, so it's really effective for that, because the way that we connect up with marketing automation systems like ConvertKit or Drip or HubSpot or Infusionsoft is that you can actually put people onto different sequences and different lists and tag them in certain ways based on which personality they get in your quiz.
Okay.
And then you can also segment them based on how they answer any of the individual questions in the quiz. So let's say you have a quiz and it says, one of the questions is, how long have you been in business? And one of the answers is, I haven't started yet. And you want everybody who hasn't started yet to go on a particular drip sequence. You can do that. And you can do the same thing with your personalities of your quiz. So if somebody is, let's say, the eccentric entrepreneur in your what type of entrepreneur are you quiz, you can put them onto a particular list or a particular sequence based on the fact that they are the eccentric entrepreneur. So you can really get granular with what you want to send to people and what you want to show them based on how they answer the quiz questions or which outcome they get.
Understood. So you need to do the outcome, or you're going to have that one hidden question in your list of 7 that's going to be your indicator. That's kind of mixed in with that. Gotcha. Now, I'm really big on learning from examples and stuff. Do you have like an example of a company that's done this segmentation, and then walk us through how they, did it with their social messages or their email subject lines or anything like that? Do you have anything particular that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's one that I worked on recently with an influencer named Marie Forleo. She's gotten pretty big. She's been on Oprah's show and all this kind of stuff. And we did a quiz with her. It was, what type of entrepreneur are you? And in the email follow-ups, the first email that she sent to everybody was, your entrepreneurial type is, and then it restated which one you got in the quiz. And I thought that was super powerful because people had already seen that, because once you put in your email, you can see your results right away. But that email was a reiteration, and it also had more information. And then what she did was, about 3 or 4 days later, she sent out an email that was, here's the other entrepreneurial types. And so people are always curious about what else they could have gotten, because, I'm this type, but what are the other ones? How do I compare? That kind of stuff. And so she sent those out, explained what those were. And then about 4 days after that, she sent out another email that said, here's how to use your gift as this type of entrepreneur. So whichever type you got was in the subject line again. And she had a whole write-up for each of the different types about how to use your gift. And then she sent out one final email in that follow-up sequence that was a top 10 list of the top 10 things you should be doing as this type of entrepreneur. And she had a list of 10 things for each of the types. And all of those emails reference your particular type, which is really powerful, and they all got super high open rates. worked really well for driving into different products and services that she has.
Well, talk about that part. Talk about that. Talk about the money making part. So how did she tie it in at the end there?
Yeah, so the way that you do that is you say in your call to action on those emails, if you are, let's say, running an online course that people can jump into and purchase, you say, hey, we have more to learn in terms of how to improve as a, insert type of entrepreneur here. Then if you want to learn more, click here to enroll in our course. So you personalize the call to actions. You say, you can learn more as your type. Click here to enroll in our course. And so everything's tied back to your particular type, which again is going to be more powerful because it references them as an individual, as their particular personality, all that kind of stuff. And so every single one of those emails should have a call to action that's personalized to the particular type and has an invite to go to the next step.
Yeah, I can imagine somewhere, software as, SaaS companies, software as a service, they have different levels of what they're offering. So, hey, this might be, your beginner's level, or if you're doing training courses and you have beginner, intermediate, advanced, those are some logical things that just come off the top of my head that can be very, very powerful. If you're a Facebook trainer, and this is where you need to begin, or here. Yeah, and so people can just think through their segmentation of what they have. That definitely could work. And if you only have one product to offer, you can still be creative with showing them this, showing them that, showing them that, and then just saying, after that, just in general, list your product or service or whatever you have to see if they're interested. But the engagement that leads up to that lends that conversion to have a higher clip of happening. Is that basically how you see it?
Yeah, exactly. So you got to kind of get people ready to go. It's an intro into your product or service, and then the offer for the product or service is then personalized to whatever happened in the intro. So everything just becomes more personal, which is really the key to unlocking. If something is made for me, I'm much more likely to want to buy it than if it's just a product, right? So that's the whole purpose with the segmentation and those intros using the logic of the quiz, is that you can all of a sudden make your product an individual thing rather than just a product, right? So it stops being a product and it starts being an individual service for this person, which they are much more into than, just the generic stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody's looking to lead magnets, right? And, and people get all crazy about something, be it white papers, ebooks, webinar signups, and then a little bit of time passes and people want to go on to something else and do something else. And there's something to be said for that because there is user fatigue. But I will say those other things still work, but we're looking for new and better and different engaging stuff. And I think that's even why, like, promotional mail is, you're seeing an uptick there just because people stop doing it. So you want to be doing something other people are not doing if you want to stand out. And quizzes are that lead magnet, but they're one that's fun, more engaging, more people are apt to get into your world. And if you can just get them into your world, period, let alone them converting right now, they're in your world now. You have their email, you can start marketing to them, you can be in your social stuff. So that kind of leads me to promotion. But let's just not talk about promotion after the quiz. That's a conversation for another day. But promotion of the quizzes. Can you let us know all the areas you have seen good for promoting these quizzes and getting people to sign up for them?
Yeah, so there's two big areas. The number one area is on your website, so traffic that's already on your site. Then the number two area is on Facebook. So on your website, you can use our platform to spin up either an announcement bar across the top of your site or a timed pop-up that comes up with the actual quiz. And both of those are super effective. The announcement bar is a little less intrusive, but you're not going to get as many clicks. The pop-up is intrusive, obviously, but very effective in terms of getting leads. So that's one of the big areas. And the other big area is a Facebook ad. And we've seen Facebook ads scale enormously, something like 14 to 18,000 leads in a week on some of these quizzes at like a 22 cent per lead cost. So like very, very cheap leads. very quickly using
I
Facebook
assume
ads.
the organic part of that kicks in your favor too, right?
Yeah, because people end up sharing the results, they end up sharing the quiz, all that kind of stuff, which just adds to what you're getting.
The low cost,
Yeah, so very, very low cost. So we also provide, boilerplate copy based on your particular quiz, so you can go replicate that ad in Facebook and make sure you're getting good results with that. So it's really website with the pop-up and announcement bar, and then Facebook ads are the three big areas.
All right, awesome. Side note, if we want to team up, you do the quizzes for us, we do the Facebook promotion. let's talk. Because,
there you go.
I know the quizzes aren't, they I don't think they sound easy. I don't think we're making them sound easy. I think we're making them sound effective, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So you got to learn from and use the correct tools and learn from people like Josh and his services and everything, because they're powerful, but you got to think them through. Now, where do you see these quizzes fitting in relation to the buyer's journey? The whole awareness, consideration, buying. Do you see quizzes fitting mainly and squarely into the awareness stage, or do you have some quiz examples that work into latter stages of this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can work them in later, but I actually prefer not to recommend that, because I think there are genuinely better tools for getting people through a funnel. Where a quiz really wins and stands out from the crowd is in infotainment, is what we call it. So
it's in the awareness.
It's entertainment, but it's also some info, and you're getting them into your world, like you said, which is a very difficult thing to do when there's so much going on in social media and there's so much news and info that's constantly hitting us. And a quiz can really work to break through all that noise and get you to stand out from the crowd and get your prospects into your world, and then you can work with them from there. So I'd say it's primarily made for getting you to stand out from the crowd in the first place.
Okay, awesome. Now, you talked about 50% of people will convert on the quiz. I assume there's more to it than that. I assume that there's some strategy and some tactics that you have for getting their name and email to get the results, right? So what pointers do you have for us here to get to that 50% conversion rate that you talked about?
Yeah, so a lot of that happens in the run-up to the opt-in. So just to put it in context, the opt-in happens at the end of the quiz. So once somebody has answered all the questions of the quiz, they are presented with an opt-in form that says enter your email to see your results, and you can change the text on that, obviously. But a lot of what happens is before that, in the questions. So if you are writing those questions that are written for an individual, and they sound very personal and they sound very real, as if they were written by a person who's talking to you, then people are going to be warmed up and much more receptive to your opt-in offer at the end of the quiz. So that's a big part of it. But then when you do get to the end of the quiz and you're asking them to opt in, you obviously want to let them know that they're going to get to see their quiz results, because you don't want to be, scamming them and say, hey, enter your email, and then you never even show them the results, which is why they're there in the first place. So you want to make sure you're letting them know they can see it. But then you also want to let them know that you're going to send them personalized advice based on which result they get, which is, again, we're going to send you stuff that's built for you based on which outcome you get on this quiz. So that's a huge appeal, because all of a sudden I'm going to get some information that's made for me. It's going to help me in my particular area. And obviously, we all care about ourselves. So we're going to want to know that we're getting personalized follow-ups. And so you definitely want to let them know that's going to happen in addition to seeing your results. So those are the two things you want to make sure you cover on the actual opt-in form, which is kind of your big moment to get people to opt in.
So the biggest takeaway is 1,000,000% sure, everybody, put it at the end. Put the opt-in at the end, because now you're tapping into the psychological aspect of people being vested, right? They just spend 1 to 2 minutes of their time, and they didn't want to whoa, give me my answer, right? Well, that's how you get them, at the end. So leave it for the end. Do not opt in at the beginning. Opt in at the very end, and then you tell them you will be getting an email that does this. So that's the biggest point, takeaway, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people that come to us and they're like, oh, I need to ask for it first because I don't want to be, giving away my quiz. But you have to understand that no one cares until they're invested, and they only get invested if you've got good questions that really draw them in and it makes them feel more comfortable with your offerings, your brand, your services. So there's really no reason to opt in. I mean, taking a quiz is fun, but it's not a reason to give your contact information. A reason to give your contact information is to get personalized advice and personalized help and tips based on who you actually are. That's a reason. Taking a quiz is not a reason.
Gotcha. Well, that's a huge point, everybody. I'm going to just reemphasize that. To put it at the end, and that's where you go and tell them what they're going to get. And then you gave some great advice earlier, okay, what to do next. Well, you're already putting all this time and effort into thinking all this through, doing the quizzes. Don't just send them an email that has the answer. Do a follow-up sequence tied to that. You know, your quiz type is this, and then here's how the, you know, here's the next step, and then here's the next email, and then maybe your call to action. So make sure you have all that tied in before you start launching these. That's some great advice. Now, do you have any other advice for the listener, Josh, on leveraging these leads, like anything else that you do with these outside of like the email sequence? Anything else you can think of that you've seen people strategically utilize, you know, the good results that they get from the people taking the quizzes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mainly in emails. We do have folks that ask for phone numbers and then do calls to follow up. But one of the other big aspects of the emails is when you think about segmenting, you actually want to think about filtering people out of your list using the quiz. So let's go back to that question example where it's how long have you been in business? And your services just don't apply if somebody's been running a business for 10 years because you're helping people start new ideas. And if you've been running a business for 10 years, you're not starting something, you're running something, right? So you can actually say, if somebody answers 10 plus years, I don't want them on any sequences, which is powerful because we don't want to be wasting our time on people that are not good fits. And sometimes those people end up being the most time consuming because they'll ask you all sorts of questions and stuff like that, even though they're not the right fit for your company. So I would say the other thing to think about in addition to the email follow-up sequences is who you don't want to follow up with, which is almost as important as who you do want to follow up with.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay, so now we've run through it. We've done this. We've had a lot of success. And now we're coming, we want to keep doing this. This is awesome. This is working great for us. I imagine writer's block for quiz ideas comes into play at some point. I can imagine people not quite knowing exactly what kind of quiz to do next or what quizzes might not be good for them. Can you help with the ideation process here and maybe some specific examples? I think I think I've read you talk about good ones for marketing, coaching, SaaS, retail, nonprofit, productivity, food industry, stuff like that. So just to kind of get everybody's creativity flowing here, can you help with, potential writer's block?
Yeah, so there's a few options for this. The first one, which is kind of a cop-out answer, is that sometimes you don't need to come up with anything new. We've had people run the same exact quiz as a Facebook ad for 4 years and get the same exact conversion rate for 4 years.
Okay.
So you can run the same thing for a really long time, which is a misconception I think people have about quizzes that, we see these new ones on Facebook all the time, so we have to keep making new ones. But we did this article where we compared quiz titles from 1996 to quiz titles from 2016, and they were the same. So you can do the same thing for a really long time is one of the answers. The other answer is that the important thing is to look around at what's hot and what's trending in your industry. So, just a very, very specific example is in the cooking industry. Everybody is into hot pots recently, which is like a pressure cooker that cooks your food like really quickly.
I heard it. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I just heard some people raving. 2 friends were raving about having one.
It's
the fast. Actually, my coworker, he's listening in right now.
Yep.
My gardener.
Yep.
Or no, they were talking to him about getting one. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And basically, what you can say, so let's say you run a food blog or a food site, you can say, which recipe should you make in your new cooker, right? And you can even add the brand name in there.
That's a great idea.
right? So you look at what's happening and you tie your quizzes into that. So all of a sudden you've got just a wealth of ideas, and this happens in every industry. If you're in finance, it's how much do you know about cryptocurrency right now, because everybody's talking about it, right? So you can really tie into whatever's hot on the news and just connect quizzes to that and bandwagon off of whatever is happening.
That is a fantastic idea, and you can just go to trending topics on Twitter for that. That is fantastic, and it's a step past what I think I saw you write. And I'll just list these out to give some other people some more general starting bases. But I would suggest taking it a step further and applying what Josh is saying is hot right now, because that logically makes the most sense, right? But I did see I saw a blog that you wrote that I wrote down some of these, and I would like to just state them to get people thinking, because you covered, like I said, lots of different stuff. So marketing, what type of marketer are you? Coaching, what type of thinker are you? SaaS companies, what type of IT worker are you? Retail, what's your fashion style? Nonprofit, which famous human rights advocate are you? That's a fantastic topic. Productivity, what's your productivity personality? Food, what kind of cake are you? So I can see all those giving people a good starting point, but I do want to circle back as you're getting started, to Josh's original advice here is, which blank are you? So if you start there, but then if you can take it a step further and look at trending topics and see what's hot, then that could even give that one extra layer of effectiveness. So, but I love that. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And digging into Facebook Insights and all of that will help you find the commonalities. If it matches with a trending topic, there's your answer, or there's your starting point. So, as we kind of tie things up here, I'd like to touch on common mistakes. We've kind of mentioned them off and on here, but I'd like for you to highlight, again, some of the common mistakes that you've seen people do through I think you've analyzed over 40,000 quizzes, that where have you seen people go wrong the most, and say absolutely, positively do not make these same mistakes?
Yeah, I'd say there's a top three. Number one is too on brand. And I'm going to say it that way because everybody is concerned with staying on brand. But when they stay too on brand, it doesn't work. And there's one that really sticks out to me from memory. And this company that sells services for the Internet of Things said, "Are you ready for the Internet of Things?" on their quiz. And it was such an obvious ploy for this managed service to help you set up for the Internet of Things.
Yeah, sounds like it.
That's an example where a team came up with that idea. It got changed a bunch of times. They had to get approval from higher ups. And by the time it was done, it was terrible. And it was so on brand, but no one wanted to take it. I don't know if they got any opt-ins. So number one mistake is being too blatant in terms of, we sell this and we're going to make a quiz about that exact thing. It just doesn't work. That's where you go back to your, which blank are you, or how much do you know about some subject. You got to make sure that you stay on the fun side, but also connect it to your brand. But too much on brand is the most common mistake. The second most common mistake is not promoting it correctly. So we'll get people that set these up. They publish it on a random blog post, and that's it. That's not what you do with a regular lead magnet. Why would you do that with a quiz? So if you just added a link to an ebook at the bottom of a blog post, you wouldn't expect anybody to download it. So you got to put it out in one of the ways that we talked about. So either as an announcement bar, a pop-up, or a Facebook ad. So that's mistake number two. And then mistake number three is getting too wrapped up in the accuracy of the quiz. We commonly get support requests that I kind of hear about through the grapevine, where someone comes in and needs help and they've got 144 quiz questions and 212 quiz results. That doesn't work, and is such a waste of time, and no one's going to answer all of those questions. So not only did you waste your time, but you wasted other people's time, and you're getting no leads. So you have to kind of let go a little bit from the fact that this is not the most accurate thing in the world. This is not a perfect diagnosis of exactly who someone is, and you don't need to drill down into all the specifics. And you kind of have to just make it fun. It can stay relevant, but you should stick with 7 questions, not 100 and something. So that is mistake number 3, is to follow the best practices for a fun and engaging quiz and not try to make it overly accurate.
Awesome. Now let's just tie all this together. And if you had to pick the number 1 key thing to creating a quiz that works for your business, what would you say? Tying all this together.
The number 1 key thing is to know who you're talking to. It connects to all parts of a quiz: the title, the way that you write the questions, how you speak to people in the results, what they're interested in, which informs how you write your opt-in. So the number 1 thing is just to know who is going to take this quiz / who do you want to have take this quiz. And if you have that in mind as you're building the whole thing, it's going to be so much more successful than if you're just shooting in the dark.
Understood. Well, man, this has been awesome. I'm going to have our new employee listen to this today because I want to have as many bullets in our chamber as far as getting engagement, getting out there, creating leads, doing stuff. And I'm loving this. It just feels such a nice component and add-on if you're doing any other lead gen activities. Not only do you get something that's effective, you get to be fun. And fun is the name of the game in business for almost every single business in the world. Whether they acknowledge it and realize it or not, it helps. It helps with your culture. It helps with your image. It helps with everything. So awesome. Great time. I really appreciate it. How can people continue to learn from you about this subject, Josh?
Yeah, definitely. So I write on our blog a good amount. It's tryinteract.com/blog. And then I'll post stuff on LinkedIn with different tips and tricks. So you can find me. It's just Josh Haynam on LinkedIn.
All right. And do you have a Twitter handle by chance that you're active on?
Yeah, I'm at jhaynam.
All right. And that's JHAYN as in Nancy, A-M as in Michael. Josh Haynam. All right, Josh. Until next time, and I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the latest podcast. Feel free to go to magnificent.com/blog to see the show notes for this interview, as well as those from many other of the world's top marketing experts. Have a great day.